So in the previous video, we looked at something called the product rule, which is how you take the derivative of one function multiplied by another function. Here we're going to look at the quotient rule, in which we find out how to take the derivative of one function divided by another function. So in this case, we might refer to f of x as the function that's in the numerator, and g of x is the function that's in the denominator. So just like the product rule, there's a formula of how to do this. We take the derivative of that upper function multiplied by the lower function, subtract from it the upper function multiplied by the derivative of the lower, and then we divide the whole thing by the lower function squared. Okay? So with this formula handy, try to evaluate this derivative real quick. Pause the video. Alright, if you gave it a shot and you tried to evaluate it, you would have seen that x cubed in this case was f of x, or our upper function, and 2x squared is g of x, or our lower function. So if we apply this, we'll look at this step first, the derivative of the upper, which is 3x squared, multiplied by the lower function, which is 2x squared, minus the upper function, x cubed, multiplied by the derivative of the lower function, 4x, then all over the lower function squared. So that'll be 2x squared, the quantity squared. Now if we go through and simplify this, the top will end up getting 2x to the fourth, the bottom will be 4x to the fourth. Well, those cancel and we end up with just the derivative of that whole thing is just 1/2. So just like with the first example we gave on the product rule, in this example we could have reduced what was in these parentheses from the onset and not ever had to do the quotient rule. If we did this, we would get that x cubed over 2x squared is the same thing as 1/2 x. And if we take the derivative of 1/2 x, we just get 1/2. Okay, so it still works, just like with the product rule. In this case, we didn't need to use the quotient rule, but on the problem on the next slide, you will definitely have to use the quotient rule. There's actually no way to solve it without using the quotient rule. So without further ado, let's look at this horrible piece of equation right here and try to solve this derivative using the product rule. Pause the video. Okay, if you were able to do it, first of all, you would have had to divide it up, our upper function. We would have had this as f of x. And then this guy down here would have been our g of x. So if I scroll down a little bit, and we're going to need all the room we can get to solve this one. We start out, okay, with the derivative of the upper function, which would be 4 times 3/2. Remember that 4 is a constant, it just goes out front. X to the 3/2 minus 1 is 1/2. Then plus 5x to the fourth. We multiply that by our g of x function, 2x cubed minus 5/2 x squared plus pi x to the -3. Then we subtract, we multiply our top function, 4x to the 3/2 plus x to the fifth, multiply by the derivative of the bottom. In this case, the derivative will be 6x squared. Then if we do the derivative of this guy right here, when we bring the 2 down, that's just going to cancel that 2 in the denominator right there. So we'll just get minus 5x. If we subtract 1 from 2, we just get 1. That's why the power is just x. And then right here, keep in mind that pi is just a constant, okay? So we can bring that out, and then we multiply the -3 down. So this will be -3 pi x to the -3 is the power. So -3 minus 1 is -4. And then we divide that entire thing by the bottom squared. So 2x cubed minus 5/2 x squared plus pi x to the -3. All of that squared. Okay, so that's the entire derivative of that function right there. Really, really nasty. We could try to simplify it as best we can, but if you can just get to this stage of evaluating this entire derivative without the simplification, That's the most important part. The simplification will come. That's like Algebra 1, Algebra 2 stuff, okay? You guys have been doing that forever. The biggest thing is the calculus stuff, which is applying the quotient rule. So if you still have questions on this, just come in class tomorrow and ask away.